All right, everybody. I see we got quite a few people on here, and we're right at the 2 o'clock mark. So for those of you who if you missed the beginning, you're not going to be able to tell anyway, but we're going to send out the link to this video once it's all gone through its post-processing. So welcome. My name is Zach Nicklin. I am the co-principal investigator of the National Center for Autonomous Technologies and also serve as the co-chair for the FAA Unmanned Aircraft Systems Collegiate Training Initiative. So here today, we're talking about from ideas to reality, developing, starting, and maintaining a drone program. With me, I've got a few different representatives here. We've got Kenneth Yano. Kenneth's from Southwest College, and he's going to be taking over here in just a second. But we've also got Alina George and Diana Robinson, who's going to be just hanging around in the background a little bit. But once we get to the Q&A session, they'll be there to answer any questions you may have. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ken Yano, and he can take it away from here.
Thanks a lot. Get my screen going. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We put together this webinar with the thought that it would be a great idea in sharing information with people about how to develop a drone program or just a simple course at your institution. It's an interesting period of time during the pandemic. I can speak personally in that we have not offered our drone course now for a couple of semesters. I know some folks who have drone courses are doing it remotely using simulators. At Southwestern College, we decided not to do that, so we put it sort of on hold with hopes that we'll be back in play come fall 2021. All right, so as Zach said, my name is Ken Yano. I'm professor of geographical sciences at Southwestern College. We're a two-year institution, closest higher education center border. We serve about 18,000 students, and our drone program is about a year old. So we're relatively young. And what I wanted to do was share the steps that it took for us to get our program in place. Some of it is relatively straightforward. Some of it is a little bit more challenging and complicated. And what we're going to do is go over all the in the weeds details that you'll need if you want to get a course going. If you already have a course or program and you're looking to keep it going, and maybe you're looking for curriculum, then we can offer you that as well. So we'll get to that shortly. So this is a couple of students of mine. This was the very first semester we offered the course. The guy on our right, he actually crashed our Inspire 1 because I made a huge mistake. On the very first day of flying, we took our students to the football field. It's a great place to do some flight training. Very first day, everybody was flying great. He got a little bit overconfident. I brought up the Inspire 1, which was a big mistake, and he ended up crashing it. That's the only crash we've ever had. And fortunately, no one was injured. And the drone, although out of commission, was a good learning experience for us. And I tell you this for a reason. If you're starting a drone course or program, you start with the little guys, not the big ones. Even though all these drones are frankly relatively easy to fly, start with the small ones, like the one that you see there. That's a little DJI Mavic Pro. And even for some programs, that might be a step up, but it's a great little training drone and it flies lily. So what is the Southwestern College program? We have 2 certificate paths. We don't offer an associate's degree, rather we offer certificate. We have a certificate of achievement in drone technology and applications, and then we have a certificate of proficiency. At Southwestern College, the achievement certificate is the one that's at the chancellor's office for California. The proficiency certificate is just in-house. It's something that we offer at Southwestern College. We can put it on our transcript, but it's not really recognized in California, but it is very good for students. If they want to go to a job, they can still say, I've got this certificate of proficiency from Southwestern College. So what's the difference? The achievement is 16 units. There's 6 classes. It can be completed in 1 to 2 semesters. We introduce students to drone applications across a variety of disciplines. We hope that the students have a discipline in mind and that we can use drones for their craft. Ultimately, we want these students getting this certificate to either seek employment in the drone industry or set up their own business. And we actually have students take a business course, which I'll talk about very shortly. But our primary instructor owns a drone business. It's called Bird's Eye Aerial, and they're pretty big in our region. Right now, we've had two cohorts. At least four of our students have gone through his business, have done internships at his business. And in fact, two of them have been hired on full time. So we really hope that that's the path that these students take in the achievement program. In the proficiency program, three classes: ground school, the core drone course, and a single elective in any course they want. Is an exhaustive list that we have, because we want students in a variety of fields to learn how drones are being used in their discipline. And what ultimately happens is, if these students, let's say, are geography majors, they're going to have their geography elective is already done. So they'll take the drone courses, and then they'll see how it's being used in mapping, for example. And if they go on for their undergraduate degree, maybe they'll start working with a faculty using drones. Or maybe they'll keep this on the side, and when they graduate, they'll have this tool set in their pocket. So we still find the proficiency to be fairly effective. So what are elements to consider when you develop a course or program? And again, it's not as easy as developing a regular course. There's a fair amount of elements that we see when we're developing a drone course or program. And of course, the first is curriculum. What curriculum do you offer? So our program includes a 1-unit ground school. It's 100% online. It is designed to prepare students to pass the FAA Part 107 exam. We then have a core course, 3 units: flight training, data collection, and data processing. Where did the curriculum come from those two drone courses? Well, something that we did was we had what's called a DACOM. A DACOM is developing a curriculum. And what you do is you bring in community representatives who work in the field for 2 or 3 days. And over those 2 or 3 days, you hash out what these people do in their jobs and the major competencies that these folks need to know in their particular profession. So we've incorporated DACOM data into our course so that students who are going through our program are prepared immediately to enter the workforce, certainly in our region. We have students take a remote sensing course, a GIS course, a business course. And again, this is in case they want to be entrepreneurs and make their own business. And then we again have an elective that's drawn from a long list. And it could include inspection, fire science, image analysis, photography, etc. And by the way, just very quickly, if you have a program or if you're starting one, if you're looking for resources, look up uastep.org, ncattech.org, geotechcenter.org. All these National Science Foundation funded programs have curriculum that you can draw from to begin your program. Okay, that's relatively easy. What about the hardware and the software? And this is really not for the faint of heart because you're not just purchasing a drone or two to fly around. You got to think extra batteries, $75 to $700 each, depending upon the drone you're flying. You need tablets, such as iPad minis. You can go for Androids, but iPad minis work fairly well. You're looking at different sensors, like thermal sensors. If you're doing inspection and mapping, those can range from $3,000 to $15,000 if you're getting the high-end stuff. It's possibly not needed if your program is photography and cinematography only, but if you're having more of a holistic program, it can get costly. What about high-end RGB sensors for pro photography and cinematography? 2 to 10 grand. Multispectral sensors, mapping and precision agriculture, $5,000 to $10,000. You need software for image processing and analysis, such as Pix 4D Mapper, software for mapping, such as ArcGIS Pro, And if you're doing some real creative photography, then Adobe Creative Cloud is important. So the question becomes, can you get away with having a drone program or a course without all of this high-end expensive stuff? And the answer is yes, you can do it. If you're looking at drones, you can get a drone with a 4K camera for $1,500. Again, it's not cheap, but you can even have a program with DJI Mavic Mini 2s, $400. They're great for learning how to fly, great for taking imagery. You can't change its sensor, but if you're starting a course and the course is an introduction to applications and you want to teach students how to fly and take imagery, then this is a really good option. And that's how you can expand a program. So if you don't have a lot of financial resources, start small. If you've got limited resources, but you don't want to start this small, you can purchase more expensive drones. Just don't buy a bunch of them. Maybe you can afford some DJI Phantom 4s, which are wonderful drones, my personal favorite. Maybe you're talking a shade over $1,000. Maybe you can afford 3 of them. And so now you have 3 drones in your program that students are sharing and learning to fly with. That's another viable option. At Southwestern College, we have funding resources. We have Perkins funding, we have strong workforce funding, and we have National Science Foundation grant funding. So there is money out there to start a program, but the key is you're going to need some semblance of dollars unless you have a borrowing type program. And that might be something that Zach can speak of later on, because I know that his program, the NC CAT, they do some loaning, but I'm not sure the extent of it, so he can address that. Okay, so those are a couple of aspects: curriculum, resources, equipment, and software. But what about other stuff that you don't have to think about with other programs? Campus liability, notification, drone registration, all important. The first thing that we did before I even started out in this endeavor of creating a course or program, I had a meeting with our CFO. Can you please tell me if we have blanket coverage for drones? He said yes, so we were good to go. Next, talk to the campus police force. If we have a program, we will be flying. Would you like us to notify you? So we had them in play. They advised us, wear yellow vests so we know that your students aren't just people off the street flying around. So we did that. Register your drone with the FAA, and you can register each drone individually for $5 under a Part 107 license, or educators can still get away with this. You can register all of your drones for $5 total under a recreational flyers registration. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last, but as of now, you can still do something like that. We have over 30 drones in our program, and at the moment, they're all registered for $5 under recreational flyer. Okay, what other steps do you need to take? Meet with your campus administration and share them the program. I had a meeting. I invited the campus president, vice president of human resources, vice president of academic affairs, my dean. We all sat down, went over the curriculum, said, this is what we want to do. All of them had buy-in. So now we were ready to go. We also contacted the ASO. We wanted students to know that we would be flying drones. We actually have a relationship with the Chula Vista Police Department where they use our roof as a launch site for a variety of purposes, but our students participate as interns, as visual observers. But we wanted to contact the ASO first to make sure that students understood what we were doing and to make sure that they were buying into the program. They were all very excited. We offer professional development opportunities for colleagues to get them on board with drones, usually in the form of summer professional development, where we'll bring faculty in for 2 or 3 days. We'll teach them to fly drones, collect data, then they'll make curriculum based upon their discipline. And we start having partnership with our local school district, Sweetwater Union School District, and we're starting to have dual enrollment opportunities with our high school drone clubs, drone challenges. In fact, I had a meeting the other day And the instructor at the high school that we're going to use for our dual enrollment purposes said, Ken, we don't want to steal students from Southwestern College. And our response was, that's okay. Because the more students you have taking your course, they're probably going to take the more advanced courses at Southwestern College. But even if they don't, holistically speaking, we're really doing a nice service for our campus community. So outreach was really, really important for us. Who can teach the course? And I've talked to a lot of people and they've run into issues. And to give you a quick anecdote, we offer initially the course in geography. Geography 108, that was our drone course. The instructor I really wanted doesn't have a geography degree. So in California, you either have to have the degree or equivalency. He had neither. So what we ended up doing is we made same as, and we created an Aeronautics 108 course. He can teach aero, but not geography. So when we label the course as aero, now he can teach it. He's got an avionics or an aviation background. He obviously has his Part 107. He has drone company. This was no problem. As it turns out, aero, at least in California, you don't need a master's degree to have that equivalency. You need to have experience. And so this is one workaround in trying to find your instructor. We also label the course Art 117 because we team teach the course with our photography instructor who likes drones. And FTMA 108, that is our video production course. So this is a drone course for all these different disciplines. And the way we deliver it is team teaching. We'll have mapping, inspection, photography, videography, and we allow students to choose their pathway within a singular course. And it's worked out extremely well. Course enrollment, because we have overlay, we've never really had issue with enrollment. We've only offered it twice so far, but each time it's filled. We also offer the course as non-credit for those students who aren't looking to add this to their transcript, but just want the practical experience. They can take the non-credit version, which is the same exact 4-credit version. We overlay everything. So we always have students. We'll generally have 2 to 3 instructors teach the course. We have funding to hire 2 to 3 students to work with us for additional support. So if we have 20 students in the class, we'll have 2 or 3 students on a drone, but we like to have eyes on them. So we'll have 2 or 3 instructors. We'll have 2 or 3 students who have gone through the program and who have gotten their Part 107, and they work with us as student aides. With that in mind, we don't have any issues with enrollment, certainly not up to this point. And that's it for us. This is just a grand statement on UAS. It's a interesting program. It's a fun program. We've had great buy-in from campus community, great interest from students. And so we're hoping to continue the program. We just picked up a batch of new equipment. I mean, we're ready to run with it. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to hand this back to Zach. I'm going to reserve any answers to questions you might have when we get into the question and answer section of the talk. All right, let me stop sharing. I'm going to hand this back to Zach.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken. And oh, my screen share is disabled. Hey, Zach from our tech support, if we could allow more screen sharing here. It's telling me that I can't screen share. So until I get that, I'll just talk for a second. Lots of great points, Ken, and there's actually lots of great questions lining up for you in the Q&A section. I think we'll probably, if there's something quick to answer, feel free to jump in there and answer the Q&As there. Outside of that, we can absolutely, we're going to have the Q&A session at the end. So that's where we'll address probably most of the questions there. I've been trying to keep up in the chat, and there's some other great folks that have been chiming in with some good information. So thank you all for that. We all benefit when we share. So, all right. All right, you guys are not seeing my screen right now, are you? My PowerPoint.
Yeah, we are.
There we go. Okay, good stuff. All right, so again, I'm Zach Nicklin, UAS Program Manager and then Primary Instructor here at Northland College, co-PI for NCAT and co-chair for the UAS CTI. And so in talking about starting and maintaining a drone program, we thought that talking about drone maintenance itself would be a great idea because just getting the equipment in is really not enough. That equipment takes quite a bit of care. And so we'll just go through a really short slideshow here. I think it's about 9 slides, and then we'll get to all of your great questions. So the first thing that we need to keep in mind is we need to keep in mind checklists. And there's 3 basic types of checklists that you should develop. I would love to say that every drone you buy will have a checklist specifically for that drone. But the reality is it's about the opposite. Unless you go really high end, you're likely to get not a whole lot of anything from the manufacturers, at least at this point. Maybe that will change in the future. So the 3 type of checklists is the pre-flight, post-flight, and of course the during flight checklist. So the first thing we'll do is we'll check at the pre-flight checklist here. So when you go through a pre-flight, really you're checking to make sure that your equipment is in a usable state, that it's safe to use and fly around, and frankly that you're not going to put it into the ground and waste a whole lot of money, or on the outside chance of hitting somebody else. So with your aircraft, you want to go through and you really want to inspect all parts of the aircraft. So you want to do it with a visual and a tactile inspection. Sometimes looking is not enough. You've got to touch things, especially when we start talking about like the propeller. You can get some very small cracks on the propeller that are really hard to see. But as you rub your fingernail across the edge, your fingernail sticks on that crack. Something like that is a big deal because as that starts spinning, and a lot of these propellers, they're spinning at 6,000 RPMs or more, depending on what phase of flight it's in. So they can really break apart, and it's a terrible way to lose an aircraft. It's a great video to share with your friends, but having to explain it to whoever's in charge of your budget is not always fun. So you want to check your payload, your gimbal. So the gimbal is where your payload mounts, and in fact, I can switch over up. Actually, it's not showing the camera right now, so I can switch over here. And so you can see the aircraft that we have over here. The gimbal is where all of the...
Zach, we can't see it because
you can't see that. Okay.
You're screen sharing still.
No worries. That's okay. I can just talk about it at this point and certainly point folks to videos for it. But your gimbal is where your payload connects to your aircraft. So make sure that's in good condition. Usually there's some mounts, anti-vibration mounts that go in between the gimbal and the aircraft itself that allow some stabilization for your payload. Make sure that those are well in place and in good condition. As they start to tear, obviously you're going to get more vibration on your payload, and you might not be able to collect the product that you're looking for. Landing gear, any connections that are exposed, make sure you check all those. Your motors and props, you want to check your motors for security, so make sure that they're secure on the arms of your aircraft. Also, give them a nice little spin and make sure that they spin smoothly. If it's starting and stopping, or if it feels like there's more resistance in one part than the other, you may have an issue there, whether it's sand inside of it or it's starting to fail. So check your antennas. That's the antenna on the drone itself. A lot of the ones that people are using these days are DJI aircraft, and those antennas are actually built into the legs typically. So you might not be able to actually see those. Your battery is another big important one. There's been a lot of incidents lately that I've been seeing in social media and things like that of some drones falling out of the sky. And what it is some of their battery packs are actually swelling a little bit. So when they go to click them into the aircraft, they're not 100% secure. And as they maneuver, the battery falls out in the middle of flight. Well, with these aircraft, if a battery falls out in the middle of flight, the aircraft is not too far behind that battery on its way down. So again, just make sure that it's nice and secure in there. You want to make sure your cell voltage is correct. You want to make sure the temperature is correct. I'm located up in Northwest Minnesota. So for many parts of the year, the battery temperature is really a big deal out here. If they get too cold, they really lose their charge. Let me rephrase that. They lose their capacity. So the capacity actually goes down. And so you could be flying along just fine. Your screen reads that there's 80% battery left, and all of a sudden it drops down to 20% or even 0. So just be very careful about things like that. Same thing in really hot weather. Hot weather will affect your battery capacity as well. And so just make sure that you do keep an eye on things. Read your manual is the big thing. I know we don't do that enough these days, so make sure you do take the time to go through your manual. On your remotes, you want to check again your antennas on your remote, make sure they're in the right position for good communication, make sure they're nice and secure. Joystick response. So move your joystick around, make sure again nothing sticks. And then if your remote is equipped with an auto center, so when you let go of the sticks, it automatically centers itself. Make sure that it is actually automated, going back to center on there. So last thing, any buttons and switches, and then of course make sure that your battery on your remote is properly charged. There's a little disclaimer at the bottom there. The checks may differ between aircraft and even aircraft of the same model. So I've got multiple aircraft that are the exact same, but we equip them different. So we've added on a multispectral sensor to one. One's got a dual sensor on it. So make sure that you make those adjustments and actually make a checklist specific to your aircraft for best results. Next, we have our flight checklist. A lot of people complain about, when they started a mission, they want to start it right away because they've got limited battery life. And I understand the sentiment. However, taking a minute to do these checks here will really, it'll only take a minute off of your mapping time or your mission time and may wind up saving your aircraft. So the first thing, you want to check that your command and control link is stable. So make sure that you've got good communication between the remote and the aircraft. You want to make sure that you have enough satellites. I typically say 6 is a minimum. Likely in most areas out here, I'm getting 12 plus. So, make sure that you've got proper GPS signal. If you don't have GPS signal, a lot of the times, even with these very stabilized aircraft, they will go into what's called ADI mode. And it's a little more work to keep it in the air, and there's a good chance of drifting. So if you're in a spot that maybe you got trees or buildings around, you get a good breeze and you don't have proper GPS, and that aircraft will drift, and sometimes quite a bit. Once you take off, you want to hover. And you want to hover there for just about a minute or so. And while you're hovering, you're checking for a few things. First, make sure that you've got a stable hover. So you let go of the sticks and your aircraft is stable. Again, depending on the type of aircraft you fly, because there are some that are not stable when you let go of the sticks. And so know that characteristic before you start. You want to check your stick response. Make the aircraft go forward, back, left, right, yaw to the left, yaw to the right. Check your payload signal and feed, and then you want to check your battery cell voltage. All right. A lot of these apps, and especially looking at the DJI app, again, because it is the most common ones out there, they'll give you a percentage. You want to go in and check the settings of the actual cell voltage in there. Okay. Especially as we look at adverse conditions, hot weather and cold weather. You want to make sure that they're the same, that they match up. And we'll talk a little bit more about the batteries here in a couple of slides. And then you go from there and you perform your mission. Once you perform your mission and the aircraft gets back, go ahead and check all those physical parts of the aircraft again. Make sure it's still in good condition. We do it pre-flight, we do it post-flight because even if we're in line of sight, we don't see all the bugs that hit it and all that fun stuff. As your aircraft starts building up splattered bugs, the flight characteristics can change some, specifically if they're on propellers, which is the part that tends to actually collect those bugs. So again, the same checks as the pre-flight as far as those physical checks there. The other one we're talking about is these batteries. All right. A lot of these batteries are intelligent flight batteries. So they've got a little board in there that does a lot of the control over the cell voltages and everything. The DJI, again, allows you to go into the app and you can actually check the self-discharge rate and change it based on your needs. So what it is these intelligent flight batteries, they don't like to stay charged up to 100% for long periods of time. And the recommendation actually is about 48 hours to keep a full charge. After 48 hours, it should self-discharge. Well, just so you're aware, the DJI batteries that come from the factory, almost every one that I've seen is set for almost 10 days for its self-discharge. So you can change that in the app down to 2 days. It sounds like a little bit of a pain because after those 2 days, you are going to have to recharge it all the way. But really, it's going to protect that life of the battery. And if you recall from Ken's presentation there, batteries can be expensive. I've got some batteries here that are $75 and some that are $450. So rebuying those batteries can add up to well more than the cost of the aircraft if they're not properly taken care of. Storage should be at about room temp and about 3.8 volts per cell. So 4.2 to 4.3 volts is kind of your 100% mark. 3.8 volts per cell is a nice storage range there. As you start to use these batteries, they could get puffy. So when you do an inspection of when you're doing pre-flight and post-flight, take a look at your batteries, and you'll notice that most of them, when you buy them, they're relatively square, but you'll notice the sides bulging out a little bit. If they're starting to bulge, you're having issues there, and the safest thing to do is not use that battery. If you're really lucky, you can get it replaced under warranty. That's usually a tough sell back to the manufacturer, though. But it's always easier to replace a battery than it is to replace a drone. When you're charging and discharging, you want to use a fireproof bag or a metal box. They make these really nice lipo bags, lipo charging bags, or you can use like old ammo cans, things like that. It's just you don't want to put it in a place where it can cause a fire, because they are lithium batteries, and there is a chance of fire. It's small, but the chance is there. So you want to store your batteries between, right around 70 degrees, but not below 60 degrees. So what'll happen is, as you start falling below 60 degrees, again, the capacity of that battery changes. So the capacity goes down. So if you've got a full charge on there and the capacity goes down, it actually turns into an overcharge type situation, and it could cause a thermal runaway. Thermal runaway just means it's going to start heating up and could catch fire. So storage of these batteries will absolutely improve your life that you get out of them, the number of cycles that you get out of them. And of course, there's the safety aspect of not having a fire wherever you store your batteries. Never puncture your battery. That's kind of LiPo batteries all around. You want to really hesitate buying used batteries because, at least from what I've seen, not everybody takes care of their batteries the way they should. And it's really hard sometimes to determine life. So there are some apps out there where you can kind of take a look at the number of cycles that have been on the batteries. But that really doesn't tell you much as far as how hard they were used, or were they stored for 6 months, below the recommended charge and then just top back off. So there's a lot of questions when you buy used batteries or off-brand batteries. So I know there's a couple organizations out there that are selling DJI-like batteries, and they're really attractive because they're a lot cheaper. I'd just be really careful with those. I've heard some great stories of people who, found them and use them, and they're really successful. But I've heard a lot of horror stories too. And of course, if your aircraft's under warranty, if you use an off-brand battery, likely that warranty will be voided. When you're flying, you want to look at keeping about 20% in reserve. Now, some batteries will automatically do that for you. When they say 0%, they're actually at 20% of their capacity. Some don't. Make sure that it should be in the documentation for the battery. If it's not in the documentation for the battery, call the manufacturer. I think DJI, for a lot of theirs, their 0% is actually that 20% in reserve. That being said, I never fly to 0%. I always land, typically I'm looking for a landing area at 20%. That's just the way I do things. But so when fully charged, when you go into the actual volts per cell, you should be at that 4.2 to 4.3 volts. Match this to the percentage displayed, because they'll typically give you a percentage for your battery life as well. So if you're at 4.2 to 4.3 volts, you should see somewhere between 98 and 100% for your battery life there. If you're at 3.9 volts and it says 100%, you've likely got some problems. So you may want to do a deep cycle with the battery, charge it back up and test it again. And if that doesn't work, again, you put it in the bad pile and you properly dispose of it. When you do store at those room temps around 70 degrees, but no less than 60, you want to have it at about 40 to 60% battery, and you want to check it. You want to check it every couple of months. I typically check them about once a month during our non-flying times. Again, I'm in Northwest Minnesota, so typically flying January and February is not on the books. I like my fingers still attached to my body and not, frozen off. So make sure that if you're doing long-term storage, that you do, cycle those batteries, here and there periodically. So if you can see the next point there, after a long storage period, I'm talking, 2 to 3 months of storage. You want to fully charge them back up, regardless of what the battery life says. You fully charge it back up, and then you should gently discharge to 20% before fully charging again. When I say gently discharge, I'm talking about hovering and just allow it to hover until it gets back down to 20%. I wouldn't do too much in the way of maneuvering. You want a nice, easy discharge on it. That should really kind of do a soft calibration of the intelligent flight components within there, within that battery. And then that'll make sure that when you do charge it back up, it fully goes back up to 100%. Life expectancy for a lot of these batteries, you're looking about 300 cycles. But that's making sure that you go through and do all the steps to really prolong the life of that battery. There are some that, you can get higher, you can get lower, but the rough life expectancy is about 300 cycles. And the last thing for us educators, assign, don't assume. So if you're a typical educator that has summers off or you're not in the office during summers, make sure you've got a plan for checking those batteries, whether it's somebody that works there throughout the summer, or you pop in here and there, rotate it through people, whatever it is. But always assign somebody the task and make sure it's clear whose task it is to maintain those batteries. Just assuming that it's getting done typically leads to long periods of the batteries not being properly charged. And again, that can really diminish your battery life. The last thing I'll talk about is logs. Use them. Please, please, please use them. There are flight logs, there are maintenance logs, and there are some logs that really do both. And in fact, there's a link down here at the bottom, and I'm going to put that link in the chat once I'm done talking here. And you can follow that. That's to our SharePoint. It's got a really great logbook on there that not only tracks multiple aircraft, but tracks battery cycles as long as, again, you log them. And then you can track maintenance as well on that. So making sure, especially your students and everything, log that flight time. We're starting to see it more and more as they go out into a field. The jobs are saying, hey, we want people with 50 hours or 100 hours of logged flight time. If you don't log it, you can't prove that you did it. So make sure that you do log them. It also really works great to start looking at battery life, developing your maintenance schedule. If you're noticing that the propellers on an aircraft after 45 hours, you're finding cracks, well, maybe it's a good idea to start changing them at 40 hours to eliminate that. So use your logs, go through them periodically, and adjust and tweak your maintenance schedule and things like that based on those logs. And that was it for mine. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. All right, and let's see, Zach, I think are you still on Spotlight there? You want to just take that off the screen and we'll just have us around? I see we got plenty of questions and comments in the chat. We got somebody with a hand raised. So we'll start in on the questions and the answers here. So first thing I'm going to do is just copy this link into the chat. There are also some other options for logging, air data, things like that, that'll do some of them for you. But it's kind of up to you on what you use. There's multiple options. So, all right. So I'm going to start on the with the hand raised here. Let's see, I got Anthony Mara with his hand raised. Anthony, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
What do you got for us today?
I actually just put a message in the question and answer part of the chat there. So how long are the 2 certificate programs that you currently offer at the college? I mean, hour-wise, how many hours for each program?
So for our certificate program, the certificate of achievement is 16 hours and the certificate of proficiency is 7 hours. To break that down, the proficiency being 7 hours means the students take our 3-hour core drone course. That 3-hour course or 3 units is broken down into 2 hours of lecture per week, which is online. It's a hybrid class, and then 4 hours of face-to-face. We meet every Friday. At least we did before the pandemic, from 8:30 to 12:30. That chunk of time allows us a lot of opportunity to really have cool projects that the students can do. So we'll map the campus, we'll do inspection, we'll do photography, cinematography. Just with that 4-hour slot, we have a lot of time to mission plan and do some cool stuff. So the actual time for the students for that class is 6 hours, although they get 3 hours of credit for it, 3 learning hours equivalent. We have the 1 unit of ground school, which is online. So that's 1 hour per week. And then we have our elective, which is generally a 3-hour traditional lecture class. In the achievement, it's 16 units or 16 hours. But again, the lab hours and the lecture hours breaks it down a little bit differently, but you get the point. That's how we do it.
Thank you.
But I do want to add that, you know, again, our instructor, not to belabor the point, he owns a drone business. And he told us, Ken, if I want to hire anybody, they need to have a minimum of 50 hours of flight. And I was telling him, I go, Scott, we don't have 50 hours to give. Can we get it like closer to 40? And he goes, I'll work with that. So because of that, we actually changed our course. Initially, we had 4-unit course, 3-hour lecture, 3-hour lab. But then we decided to add more flight time, more hands-on. So 2 hours of lecture now, 4 hours of lab or face. That works out well, and it gives the students much hands-on time, which is what we were really after.
What type of student are you seeing come into the program? Young, old, a mix?
It's a great question. We have a great mix. So we had returning students, higher age, 60, 70. Our oldest student was 80. We had a few students who were veterans, just got out of the armed services and were looking for a career pathway. They were in their 30s and 40s, retire pretty young if you're career service. We had, my favorite 2 students was a father-daughter team. She was collegiate age. He was her dad, so 40s, 50s, and they owned a real estate company, and they were taking the program together because they wanted to use drones for their real estate business. And so they came together. They were such a great dynamic. They were partners with the flying. So we have had such a diverse range. And in terms of male versus female, that's been pretty eye-opening as well. So right now we're about 40-60, 40% female students, 60% male students. At least that's what we've seen thus far.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken. So let's see, Mo, I can see that you got some great questions about the job analysis and ONET, and I can tell you there is a work group actually working on this, and I believe Wing is out in the audience, and Wing is the chair, so I'm going to see if I can unmute him and kind of put him on the spot here. Wing, you can always, you know, not allow me to unmute you if you don't want to speak here, but so Wing, what we got from this gentleman, and I don't know if you see it in the Q&A section, but he's got two things. Is one, he says, I need to conduct the local job market analysis to justify the start of a drone program. He found a lot of good a lot of good information on our different websites. And he's asking for any recommendations as to how to perform the job analysis. And is there anything in ONET that is drone specific?
Great. Thank you, Sag. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
You're welcome, sir.
So along with the UAS, the FAA CTI program, we're currently trying to talk with ONET to modify some of their existing job description to incorporate mentions of UAS. So just to give you an example, some of the occupations that we are looking to modify the descriptions of includes the electromechanical and mechatronic technologist and technician occupation, the remote sensing technicians occupation, and also the pilots occupations. Those are current existing ONET occupations. And we see that we can probably, in the short term, easily modify those descriptions if ONET is agreeable to that idea, so that at least there will be a home for UAS in these existing occupations. In the long term, we're planning to work with Bureau of Labor Statistics or Department of Labor to modify their SOC codes, which is a much longer process because that takes congressional approval, and they only do it every 10 years. So yeah, so the short term is to modify existing occupation. The long term is potentially create a dedicated SOC code or specialty occupation classification code for UAS technician. And in terms of conducting job analysis, maybe for your local area, I think Ken brought this up in his talk about a DACOM, the developing a curriculum process. We have written an article on how this process works and what we found from our DACOM at Palomar College with the Geotech Center. And I can paste that link in the chat window so you can see how that works.
All right, much appreciated, Wing. And again, sorry for putting you on the spot, but I figured as the chair, maybe you might want to take that one. So
yeah, no problem. Just kidding.
All right, I appreciate it. So there's another question regarding looking for an approved course in a Florida college system. Well, I can tell you at the CTI schools, so the schools that signed up for the collegiate training initiative from the FAA, there is a map available, and it's available on the Palomar website and also on the repository. So NCAT is the repository for the UAS CTI program. And I will go ahead and throw a link to that in the chat. That'll bring you right there. So that's the CTI page that I just put into the chat there. And if you just scroll down on that, it actually shows a map that Wing actually put together, Wing and his team. And they do a pretty good job of keeping that up to date and letting you know whether or not it's a certificate program or a degree program. And so yeah, the resources right there to look for some more folks in the state of Florida. If for some reason you can't get anybody on there, I believe there are a couple of Florida schools on there. But if you have any other questions regarding that, you can always reach out and between the different committees and such, we can find you someone who can answer some local state of Florida questions for you. So, all right. Let's see what we got here. So next we got Roger. So my battery charger displays low voltage and doesn't charge. Is there a way to fix it so it will charge? So there are a couple organizations out there that say that they will rebuild or refurbish your battery. I don't have any experience with them, and the only ones that I've seen have been out of the United States. So I can't really give you a for sure on that one without seeing the battery. But if it's not charging, if you have any issues with the battery, my first recommendation is always you try and recharge it. And if that doesn't work, you go ahead and move on to a new battery. Even though, again, batteries can be expensive, they're typically a lot less than the drone itself. So it's much easier to replace that battery. Kathy asked, what do we do with the batteries when they're puffy? Well, when they're puffy, there's recycling programs out there. It all kind of depends on your local area. of what kind of steps they have in place. But if you contact your local, garbage company, things like that, they could probably tell you a little bit about what they'd prefer with LiPo batteries. Adam asked if we have any digital cloud-based log applications. I did mention air data earlier. That seems to be a relatively popular one, especially for those flying DJI aircraft. I believe that air data will automatically port that over into their digital log. But Ken, do you have any other recommendations on that one?
I'm sorry, Zach, what was that question again?
Any other digital logs out there that you've been using?
That it's a good question. Logs we actually want the students to have paper logs, and I want them to carry a notebook with them, and I want them to write on the notebook, and I want them to keep notes. I know that there's some apps that can do all of this stuff, and I know that that's sort of a good and easy solution. We just really wanted to get the students conditioned to every time they take one of our birds out, they're taking notes and they're logging it, and we don't want it to rely on the digital. So we actually don't use digital logs in our class. We have students print out logs on our course site, and they have to bring it with them every class. And if they don't have their log book, and we don't have them fly. So we really want them to be at practice. And even if they don't fly, they're visual observers. We want them to log that too. So yeah, we don't use digital.
All right. Well, that's a great answer there. And I usually straddle between the two. I don't use a cloud-based solution like AirData. You can see in the link, if you follow that I put in the chat there, I use an Excel spreadsheet. And the beauty of that is that my students through the school actually have Office 365 mobile that they can use. And so they can open up that Excel right on their cell phone. And boy, we know that that student has their cell phone on them all the time. So that's kind of the way we go with it. But there's, I've used paper logs before. Me personally, I don't get along with paper logs. That's my own personal thing. I wind up going, oh, well, here's a piece of paper to write it down on. And then a week later I go, where did that piece of paper go? So I do like the accountability that Ken, pulls into his program there by actually having them have that paper log in order to fly. That's an absolutely great idea. All right. For the experts in the drone business, are any of you starting to see resumes with drone certificates or drone information on them? We, for the most part here, we're the educator side of the house. I can tell you that I am seeing job postings that are requiring logged hours. And they're also talking about having a 2-year STEM degree is really what I'm seeing the most in, they'd say, a field like drones or aviation. I don't know that I've seen any job postings that specifically call out having a UAS certificate outside of that Part 107. Ken, is that your experience as well?
I'm sorry, man. Every time you ask me a question, I'm reading the chat room. So what was the question again?
Well, I don't want to hog all the airtime. I want you to have a chance to answer questions too. So, as far as using or having job requisitions come out that are naming certifications around UAS outside of 107.
Here's the thing. I can only speak anecdotally about my local. Students who are getting the certificate in our program, they're being hired by our instructor. But in addition to that, we also have a relationship with this company called Flying Lion. Flying Lion is about 2 hours north of where I'm at in San Diego, but they were the hiring agency hired by the Chula Vista Police Department to hire pilots for the Chula Vista Police Department drone program. Flying Lion, though, they supply pilots throughout the entire Southern California region, if not the entire state, and even some bordering states. They're pretty good. So we have a relationship with them. We have a memorandum of understanding that students who go through our program and get our certificate will be hired by Flying Lion to at least have internships and possibly to be hired as full pilots, dependent upon their qualifications and flight hours. So Anecdotally, the certificate is working for us. I can also tell you that a sister college north of us, just a little bit, Grossmont College, they have a non-credit program. And that's all they've been running. They don't even have courses for credit, but their non-credit is certificate based, and they've had very, very good success. Students graduating their certificate, non-credit certificate program, or getting hired to do pilot jobs and getting paid fairly well for those jobs. So again, anecdotally, we're seeing it. Holistically, I can't guarantee it, but anecdotally, yes, we're seeing that here at our institution anyway. Oh, you're still on mute. I'll talk more.
So next we see a question about ADS-B and whether or not it's going to be required. ADS-B is actually not going to be required for drones. And in fact, my understanding is the FAA specifically said they do not want to clog up the ADS-B network with drone related information. Remote ID, however, is going to do something sort of similar, except it's not going to be across an entire network like ADS-B will. Basically, it'll be a local broadcast from the aircraft that's going to be able to allow those people who need to in the area the ability to determine, who you are and where you're flying. I know that there's been some privacy concerns, I guess, around that that they're broadcasting a pilot's information all over the place. The reality is that it is supposed to be protected, and that there's a way that law enforcement will be able to take the readout from your remote ID and basically compare it to kind of what's out there on Drone Zone with your information. I don't know if it's specifically going to be Drone Zone. Maybe Alina can jump in here. I see you there. Go ahead.
Yep, I'm here. So yes, you had everything exactly right. ADS-B in or out is not to be used on drones at all, especially now that we've got the new rule that will be coming out on remote ID. So remote ID is how we like to say a digital license plate for your drone. All it's going to show to anybody who is in a specific area around it is going to be the serial number of the drone, and I believe the pilot registration and the location of the drone itself. So that's going to change, of course, if you walk around. The only people who will actually be able to see further information about who the owner is, what their name is, their address, phone number, anything like that, all that PII, it's only going to be law enforcement. And again, this rule doesn't actually come out, like it is not effective until 2023. So it's not really something that we have to worry about just yet.
Great,
but no
thank you.
ADS-B.
Well, thank you for that explanation, Alina. And if you want to learn more about remote ID, night operations, and operations over people, which are the new rules that just got put into place, we've actually got another webinar going February 17th at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find the link to that on our NCAT website. And so if you just go to events, they should be under there. Otherwise, go into the CTI area under events, and they are for sure listed there. And you can always reach out to me if you can't find it there. So let's see. Moving on down, are you familiar with any programs that are using the DOL apprenticeship for drone programs to assist with getting students experience or jobs? At this point, I have not heard any. I'm not sure if anybody else has, but typically it's a lot of work, and the folks that are running these programs have been, these specific drone programs have been working really hard to get their students into the pipeline for jobs and internships and things like that. Ken, have you heard anybody using the DOL apprenticeship program?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, in that case, Cindy, if you hear of anything, I'd love to hear about it. You can always reach out to me, and I'm always interested in learning new ways to get things done and get students hired. So, Robert asks, is there a prohibition against using Excel as a logbook? Absolutely not. There is no requirements really, as far as I know, within the legislation or regulations, anything like that, there's not a requirement for a logbook. It's just good practice. Maybe that comes down the course later on. But as far as tracking your hours, being able to prove them to other people, and then again, getting back into that data that you get from your logbooks and using that to shape your maintenance program, it's really invaluable. So let's see. I did repost the log link. I got a couple people asking me about that, and so that is back down in the chat. So let's see. Bridget asked, students are asking us about what they should put on their resumes. They do not have a full certificate program yet, but we do help them to get the FAA license and also an 80-hour basic flight course so far. Well, first of all, an 80-hour flight course, that is great. Absolutely great. I'm wondering if you're using something like a NIST standard or something like that to really get that, good flight skills in. But what you put on your resume, I put FAA certificate, remote pilot and command, and put my certificate number. So that way, if there's any questions, they can look it up. I'll absolutely tailor my resume for the things that I've done. If you spent 40 hours of that course mapping things, and again, your state allows you to call it mapping, because if you're not a surveyor, some states get a little antsy about that. But I definitely break it down on your resume, your experience, especially if you're new and you don't have a lot to back it up. But also make sure that you have a portfolio of the products that you developed from your time flying. And that usually speaks a little bit more than the words that you can put on paper. So
80 hours is extremely impressive. If that's 80 hours of flight and you can put 80 hours of flight on the resume, that's great, because like I said, my instructor wants to see 50, and he might be generous by saying that. So if you could show 80, that's extremely impressive.
yeah, and she did say in the chat that she does use the NIST standard. So good for you. That is absolutely great. I love seeing more and more of that. As we standardize, we can all grow together and make sure that we're all got the same skills when we say that we're a drone pilot there. So let's see. All right, I'm gonna swinging through the chat a little bit. Brian asked if we can get a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation. Again, the PowerPoints are going to be available. Anybody who is registered for the webinar will get an email as soon as everything's posted online, and we'll be able to you'll be able to download that and the recording of the video. So it should be all out there and available. Our goal here at CTI and at NCAT is really sharing information. Again, it makes us all successful, and I know Ken works the same way. He's been absolutely great. He's done presentations for Drone Safety Awareness Week, all kinds of other stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. So I'm looking and I'm not seeing any other question. Okay, how close are the private pilot ground school and remote pilot ground school? I can tell you that they're very close. I haven't taken both of them, but I have a couple of colleagues who were private pilots and also took the remote pilot ground school. So they said it was fairly close. Obviously, there is a few differences. Ken, you're not a private pilot, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
That's scary.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm going to the bottom. Lots of thank yous. Great session. Thank you all for coming. If there's any more questions, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes here. Oh, here we go. Are there any specific text? Oh, Ken just took care of that one. Never mind. So,
well, I'm sorry. I was going to say we don't use any specific textbook. There's just so much good free material out there, including, by the way, and Diane and Alina will mention this if we ask them, the study guide that the FAA has for Part 107 is quite good. In terms of what we use in our core course, though, we go over things like physics of flight, drone maintenance, flight training, history of drones, and just history of aviation in general. And we just put materials together over time. We have some good materials. I will say that for our ground school course, the 1 unit, we have in the past used remotepilot101.com as a textbook. It's actually a video series. They're quite good. They keep it up to date. We had a nice special with those folks. They charged, I think, our students like $50 or $60 to have full access to Remote Pilot 101, and that was quite successful. So we've done that in the past, but we don't have a specific textbook that we use. What about you, Zach?
So for our small UAS stuff, no, we don't have a specific textbook. On our large UAS stuff, we go into a little more details, and we're a little more focused on the maintenance aspect. So there we've got a textbook that we're currently using, but frankly, I'm moving away from it. So as Ken said, there's tons of open source out there that's out there and available. So I just don't see the need to make students buy another book, and I think that's kind of the trend that most institutions are really moving away from. So Ken, Eric's looking for your email. I put mine down in the chat if you want to throw yours down there for any questions for you. And then Diana, yes, ma'am.
Just thank you both, Ken and Zach, for this is really, really a great webinar. And the fact that it's going to be recorded at the NCAT site is going to be helpful to us at the FAA. When we have schools contacting us, we can just direct them to the video. Really appreciate it. Good job.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. It was a pleasure to host. I enjoy it, and Ken seems to enjoy it too because he lets me rope him into these things. So.
Right.
I just want to tag along with what Diana said. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. I know there have been a couple of questions about more FAA specific regulations. I'm putting an email into the chat. If you have more FAA specific questions about regulations, rules and regulations, please email uashelp@faa.gov. They are incredibly knowledgeable and would be happy to help you.
And can I also very quickly just make a plug for our 2 FAA representatives? They're like amazing. And keep in mind that the whole drone genre is relatively young, and this is new to FAA. And to have these 2 reps, they're doing a phenomenal job. Whenever we have questions, Zach and I wing the Geotech Center. They are always there. They never ignore our emails or calls, which is really cool. So thanks a lot for that. Use them as a service. I don't want to give you guys more work, but definitely if you have specific FAA questions, the UAS help is good. And then these 2 folks are wonderful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll piggyback on that and say, Alina and Diana, go ahead and, show this to your higher ups. And, so that's that way you get the praise that you deserve. So absolutely super responsive for us and really interested in making sure that everybody's got the right information. And there's been very few things that they didn't have the answer to, but the things that they didn't, they went out, they found it and got right back to me. So really, really great people to work with, Diana and Alina.
I put our email as well in the chat. It's the 9-FAA UAS CTI email. So if you have any questions about the program or questions for us, please reach out. We're happy to talk to you.
We'd love to have you part of the program. We'll do what we can to get help you get started, and looking forward to meeting all of you.
That's great. And yes, as they said, the CTI program is still relatively new. If you have a program, if you're thinking about starting a program, go through the process. It's not difficult at all. You'll work with Alina and then Diana and some of the representatives, and come out to the meetings and all that fun stuff. We're going to be having our next big all consortium meeting. I believe tentatively April 2nd. Don't hold me to that yet. But if you join the program, you'll be a part of the distro list when we do decide to put that together. Further, if you have any other questions, please reach out. Even outside of here, we've got our emails up there. Check out the NCAT website, ncatech.org. Lots of great information and resources out there. We are a center of excellence. So not only do we have some of our stuff there, but we've got some great stuff that other schools have produced. You know, schools like Ken's and Wings and multiple other ones. So lots of really good information out there. And we are always working on making it more user-friendly and things like that. So again, thank you very much. I say one last question. Do we use any free exam sites for students to practice the 107? Personally, I just made a couple practice exams, or we've got representatives that have some practice exams that we use. I don't use any of the outside sites. Ken, do you use any outside sites?
So I haven't taught our Part 107 course, but our instructor was the same one as Wings instructor at Palomar. And again, we use the Remote Pilot 101. And Remote Pilot 101 just has a slew of practice exams after every section. But I do know that there are other good practice sites out there. And it's worth a look. I don't know them off the top of my head, but if you find a site and if you're qualified to assist, provide us the link and we'll take a look at it and see if it's even worthy of your students attempting to go on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So the question and answer section is now officially empty with 52 questions answered. And I know Alina, Diana, and Ken have been working through their answering questions for folks. So I do appreciate that. And it looks like I don't see any other questions in the chat. So at this point, maybe we'll call it. Again, thank you everybody for attending. There's the other one coming up on February 17th. Again, details are on the NCAT site. Thank you, Ken, for taking your time today and putting your presentation together, helping answer these questions. And then, of course, Diana and Alina for all their hard work. And Wing for letting me drag you into this, even though you didn't start as a part of this. I appreciate that, sir. So everybody have yourself a great day, and we'll talk to you on the 17th.